You are now listening to the Fantasy
Whisper
podcast with your hosts, Johnny Game Time Hicks and Big Travie.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Whispers podcast, take 2. For all of you that tuned in for the first one and it got cut off, I'm really, really sorry. All I can say to you is this.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really sorry for that. Hopefully you guys are tuning in now and coming in. We're going to start the show over. So thank you all for joining us. I want to give a big, big shout out, first and foremost, Travis, before we jump into this show, to my mom. It was her birthday yesterday. I want to give a big birthday shout out. I miss you. I love you. Can't wait to see you again. And then I also want to give a shout out because in my last video that I did, a Facebook Live video, I said anybody who would share our video would receive a shout out. So a big thank you. And to Sterling Hicks, you shared the video and you earned that shout out, my brother. All right, Travis, this episode is number 8 already. And I've got some big, big news. Along with my new lab that you see behind you, we got some other big news today, and that is we have officially hit 500 downloads on our podcast. That is just so exciting. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, we're halfway to 1,000. I couldn't be more appreciative to all you guys that are watching right now, all of you that download, listen on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, all of you that have visited the website, all of you that have put yourself out there with people that you may not know or friends that you have shared our podcast with. We love you, we thank you, and we can't wait to keep going and keep putting out content for you guys.
Absolutely. If this is your first time joining us, please give us a like and go ahead and go over to our Facebook and just follow us. You'll get notifications every single time when we have a Facebook Live event, as well as you can go ahead and check us out on YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Download our podcast. Join the many, many that have already downloaded and started listening to us. All right, Travis, are you ready to finally get into this top 10 ranked running back show?
Oh, yeah, Johnny. These are the guys that are the most valuable commodity in fantasy football, and these are the most valuable of the most valuable, the 1 through 10. So let's get going into it.
All right. But I got to pause you one more second, my brother. We need to do a little bit of news and notes because we know today a ton of news came out, and it just got me heart racing. I was so pumped reading just the news and notes updates and knowing that we're going to be the first ones to give you guys feedback on that. So with that said, let's give them a little news and notes.
News and notes from around the NFL.
All right. So first up, we have a lot of news about a lot of holds out. We have Julio Jones holding out. We have Darnold holding out. We have David Johnson holding out as well. Le'Veon Bell. Travis, what does this do for their fantasy impact heading into the season?
I just want to clarify that's Aaron Donald holding out, not Sam Darnold. But yeah.
Did I say Sam Darnold?
You just said Darnold, so I just wanted everybody to know. But either way, what the big concern would be if this leaks deeper into training camp, into preseason, and things of that nature. Right now, I'm not too concerned. If you look at Le'Veon Bell last year, he did the holdout all the way through, but still came and was ready week 1. I imagine that some of these contracts will get worked out, and the ones that are not will not last further into the season. If you think about all these holdouts that have happened, not many have leaked into the actual regular season in the past few years.
All right. And then we have out of Tampa Bay, they expect second-round pick Ronald Jones to share the load with Peyton Barber and Charles Sims to play on third downs. Does this drive the draft price and your confidence in him down?
Not really, unless we see it once again go deeper into the offseason and leading up to the regular season. And the reason I say this is I think that coaches have to say these things in the pressers to motivate these rookies to get them up to that next level. I don't think teams draft these rookies so high to not use them. And so it's a way of motivating them and, letting them know, like, if they have a short leash. So.
All right, and then over in the Denver Post, they expect the Broncos 2018 backfield to feature a heavy dose of Devontae Booker. Are you buying the hype train?
Me personally, no. I'm not a believer.
Really long hype train there, by the
way. Me personally, no. We saw what Devontae Booker kind of was last year behind that Denver line. I'm interested in see Royce Freeman. I think he's a more talented back. I think they will use him. And once again, I think it's coach speak to get Royce Freeman motivated to be the guy there.
All right. And then we've got Eagles assistant head coach, running back coach Deuce Staley suggested Jay Ajayi will be the workhorse this season. Does this raise your rankings and your confidence in Jay Ajayi, knowing that that's a really potent offense and a really, really good offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Here's the thing. LeGarrette Blount's gone, so Jay Ajayi will be the named starter. He will be the between the tackles runner. He will have a full offseason of work with Philly as opposed to just the last 7 games or so, the regular season with them. But I do believe that Philly, a Super Bowl winning team, realized that they were really good on a running back by committee basis. So that being the case, I think that they will stick to a running back by committee. An interesting stat is that Doug Peterson, in his tenure as the head coach, has never had a single rusher go over 173 carries in a year. So he loves to use multiple running backs. He's going to get Sproles back healthy. Corey Clement's still there. But I do like Ajayi to be that first and second down guy and probably a goal line guy as well.
All right. And then Jamal Charles as well as Terrence West both work out for the Saints. Knowing that Mark Ingram is suspended the first 4 weeks, we thought that the uptick would go to Alvin Kamara or at least we will get into that in a little bit later in our section. But does this cause concern for you when you see things like this?
Nah, not really. Here's the thing. We're going to get into Kamara later, and I have some interesting stuff to say on him. I think Sean Payton knows he has a very special back and a shiny toy in Alvin Kamara. And I don't think he's ready to, or I don't think he wants to be out there saying, I'm going to use Alvin Kamara so much more. You guys better watch out. It's just not smart for him to be saying those things. So I think he's out here. They're working out veterans to get a change of pace for Kamara. They don't want to wear him down before Ingram comes back. But I like Kamara to still be as productive and effective as he was last year and get some more rushing looks. I mean, he averaged close to 6 yards per carry last year.
All right, and then the last bit of news, and probably the most exciting, at least to me, tell me if I'm wrong, Travis, Andrew Luck threw a football, and more importantly, everyone saw him throw a football today at practice. On tape. Oh my gosh, I nearly dropped my phone when I watched this video. I already told you, I told it in the last episode when we were talking about those quarterback 2 areas, that if Andrew Luck is good to go week 1, I have him at quarterback. Travis, this is big news because the last time that he threw a football, the fantasy whispers weren't even a figment of your and I imagination.
Yeah, I can't be more excited for Andrew Luck, the person, right now. Basically, this is a guy that's been battling the better part of 2 years just to be able to throw a football. And that had to have been just a big step in this rehab process. And you have to do the little things first. You have to learn to walk before you can run. And Andrew Luck did that today. He was also quoted by ESPN saying that he knows he's going to play week 1. He can feel it in his bones. He's not concerned. It's not a maybe. It's not a think. He is dedicated to this process, and he is very sure that he'll be there because we spoke on it last week a little bit. He was very determined on doing it the right way this time because of the botched rehab. So I'm really rooting for him, and I'm really excited for his prospects, not to mention T.Y. Hilton and the run game. I mean, this trickles down all over the Indy fantasy scene.
All right. And that's all we've got for the news and notes. Again, thank you, SleeperBot. We get all of our news and notes updates from SleeperBot, as well as we do our mock drafts and our mock draft Mondays on SleeperBot. Check it out. All right, Travis, let's finally dive in here. We got our top 10 running backs, and we're going to start off the show, or at least I should say, can you start off the show talking about why people should draft Le'Veon Bell as the number one fantasy running back off the board, and why we have him as our consensus number one?
When you talk about cream of the crop and the brass of this position, you have to talk about Le'Veon Bell. The bottom line is he has averaged 24 or more touches in the last 5 seasons. He's averaged 21.9 points per game over those 5 years. And if you look at that historically, only LaDainian Tomlinson has ever averaged more than that in their first 5 years. So you also think about injuries, right? That's the main knock on Le'Veon Bell. Can he stay on the field? Well, he's missed a total of 18 games. And even in that span of those, he has averaged, or he's paced the field with snaps by running backs. And so on average, he gets 10 more snaps and almost 4 more touches than any other running back. He's also averaged 33 routes run per game. So we know he's got receiving prowess, but 33 routes per game, that's more than A.J. Green or Julio Jones. So he's outpacing some elite wide receiver play. The only small concern you could say you have for Le'Veon Bell is that he has a new offensive coordinator this year. So for the first time in his career, he won't have Todd Haley, but I'm not concerned at all with Le'Veon Bell. And look, Eddie
says he's the greatest running back on the greatest team in the AFC.
Well, we know Eddie is a Steeler head, clearly.
But he does make a good point, or at least a fairly decent one. And I'll tell you why. And that's mainly just like when you're looking for a house or you're looking for a property, what's the main thing that they talk about every time? That's location, location, location. And when it comes to Le'Veon Bell, it's all about usage, usage, usage. All right, he's getting so many touches each and every single year. I do not think that will go down. I actually think that will go up, knowing that the Pittsburgh Steelers do not want to pay Le'Veon Bell. They don't want to pay him as much as he wants to make. They'll franchise tag him 1 more year. They've already said that they like Connor coming out after him. They said they remind him of Le'Veon Bell, actually, and Le'Veon Bell came out and said that. So why would they not use him up and then release him and then turn over the reins to Connor? But here's why you should also choose Le'Veon Bell, because he is finished as a top 3 at the running back position 4 out of 6 years. If that's not consistent at the running back position, I don't know what is. Okay. So not only is he consistent from year to year, but he's also consistent week to week. And last year he put up 75% of his games were RB1 games. So that's exactly what you're looking for when you're drafting a running back in the first round. You want something that will return your value as close as possible when you're near the top. Only game he has finished outside of the top 24 at his position last year was week 1. And we all know it was because he was coming back from his holdout. The Steelers wanted to punish him a little bit, so they only gave him a total of 18 touches. So that is the reason why he finished outside the top 24. This year, I don't see him doing the same thing. I think this is the second year that they're going to franchise, and they're just going to use him and then get rid of him. I don't see anything changing for Le'Veon Bell this year, and that's why he is our consensus number 1, is because you can't deny the efficiency, unlike the second guy that we're going to talk about here. Travis, I'll let you talk first because this comes from your team that you got a lot of flack for this past week because you were wearing their hat, and that's Todd Gurley.
Yeah, so my second team, if you will, my homer team, being out here in the greater Los Angeles area, is the Los Angeles Rams. So you look at the engine that made the Rams run last year, and that was Todd Gurley. He was second place in MVP voting, and he led all positions in fantasy points per game last year. The knock coming into last year was, can Gurley be that dual threat? Well, he answered with a resounding yes, as he amassed a whopping 788 receiving yards last year. He led the NFL in yards from scrimmage and in touchdowns. He had 13 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving. If you look at the renaissance under McVay, and you talk about him being that engine that I spoke about, he led the league in both percentage of his team's offensive yards with 36.2% and percentage of his team's touchdowns with 42.2%. They know who the bread and butter of this offense is, and that is Todd Gurley, and they, similar to Le'Veon Bell, are going to continue to use him. My only concern is that he's only had the one elite season, but I think that has more to do with Jeff Fisher than Todd Gurley. As you see, Sean McVay gets in and gets him 64 catches, and that's the same amount he got in 2 years under Jeff Fisher. So I think that Todd Gurley has put himself in the elite at the position, and I see him continuing to do so next year.
I'm going to talk about why I have my concerns and why he is ranked number 2 not above Le'Veon Bell. But if you don't like our arguments, I'm going to do a little shout out to John Credit, wrote a really good face-off article that we just posted this past week about these 2 running backs and which one you should choose. He gives you pros and cons to each player and then gives you advice on who he would draft. But I'm going to tell you why I have him at the number 1. And that is not because the usage won't be there. He'll still get a lot of usage like you talked about. He's going to be the guy. They're going to run that offense through him. And also, if you had this guy on your roster last year in the playoffs, you should have won your league. He had the most points during weeks 14 through 16 than anybody has ever had, including quarterbacks with 107. That's just amazing. He had 19 total touchdowns last year, which is one of the main reasons why I don't think he'll repeat as the top rusher. That I do expect that to go down. He had six of those 19 touchdowns were receptions out of the backfield. I don't foresee that happening again. And if you look at where he finished number 1 last year overall of out of any running back. The last time a rusher in the NFL went back-to-back for fantasy was back in 2006, 2007. Travis, you have any idea? You want to take a guess, a gander at who that was?
Jamal Charles?
No, but it was very close. Jamal was a year after, but he only had one. It was LaDainian Tomlinson was the last guy to repeat, and that's why I lose confidence. I play the gambling of, will this happen? What are the likelihood of this running back doing what he did last year? And I've downgraded all those things. I'm not trying to say don't draft him. I'm not trying to say he's not going to be a good running back for you or a top 10. I'm just saying if I have the number 1 pick, I'm going elsewhere than
I think we're kind of splitting hairs here. I think if you're in multiple leagues, you're probably going to take maybe Le'Veon.
We have to split hairs here. It's the number 1 and number 2 overall pick.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I think you're gonna you and I will be in multiple leagues. I think if we have the number 1 pick in multiple leagues, we're gonna try and get a share of each guy. That's
good point.
My point.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
Good job. Okay. All right. So, coming up next at number 3 overall, Travis, I'm going to kick this one off with Ezekiel Elliott, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to kick this one off. Because a little whisper between me and you, I personally, if I have the number 1 pick, I am heavily debating on whether or not to take Ezekiel Elliott over Le'Veon Bell, and here's why. Through week 10, and yes, I said week 10, because I realize that you're going to say that, oh, he was suspended in week 9, so why are you using week 10? Well, still, even after week 10, Ezekiel Elliott was still the number 2 running back through the league. Now, remember, he also had a bye during that week as well, so that makes it even more impressive. He still finished as the running back 10 despite being suspended for 6 games. He only finished a week worse than RB2 one time in his entire career. You are getting amazing value, and you know what you're getting with Ezekiel Elliott. My only concern is that they may give the Cowboys have a very difficult run schedule this year. That's the 8th most difficult. And there are whispers about Tavon Austin potentially taking 12 to 24 touches in Dallas, which I don't think is going to get anywhere close to 24, but let's say it's 8. I think 8 is a realistic number. That's 8 touches away from Ezekiel Elliott, and that's the only downside I see in drafting Ezekiel Elliott. But to be honest with you, Tavon Austin has never really been anything. It's all been hype for him, so I'm not concerned with any of those. Travis, go ahead and tell me or try to convince me why I am wrong.
I think you're wrong in the respect that Zeke belongs at the number 1 pick over Gurley or Le'Veon Bell. And I'll say this only because he does not have the receiving prowess of either of these guys. Now, that's not to say he can't get there. And let's be honest, his usage was at 85.5% of team snaps. So it didn't really matter because he's paced the league in rushing. But my thing is really that what you heard from Todd Gurley last year after not being a receiving back was, I'm going to come into training camp and catch on the ball machine way after practice and put in the work that it takes to be a receiving back. I have not heard anything, and it's still early in this offseason. I have not heard stories from Zeke that he's working on this part of his game, especially you would think that you'd be hearing it now after Dez and Witten have left. But we'll see. He's got time in this offseason to do it. Now, I do think that he belongs in the top. I do think that he belongs in the top 4. He's got an elite run blocking line. He's led the NFL in rushing yards per game over the last 2 years. If you think about since 2016, he's amassed 1,616 yards, and he's second to only Le'Veon Bell by 6 yards. And he missed 6 games last year. I mean, that's the point is we can talk about the receiving a little bit, and I just brought it up, but his yardage as far as a running back, they're astronomical. So I love him. I just think that his lack of usage in the passing game is the only reason that, once again, I think we're splitting hairs between these 3. And, we're going to talk about David Johnson next. There's 3 guys that have proven they're in the receiving categories, and he just hasn't done it yet. Not saying he can't do it, because I think he has all the talent in the world to do it.
All right. I think you're just hating, but it seems that everyone is pairing with you on the comments, so that's fine. I'll take him.
Listen, ranking a running back at number 3 is not hating. So I think we both agree
when you're
on
talking
how
about
talented
a
he
guy.
is. But if
you're talking about a guy who is more Todd Gurley, more consistent than Le'Veon Bell in terms of how many times that he's an RB1 and RB2. He doesn't bust like ever. I just said he only busted one time.
Le'Veon Bell's average is 22.9 points per game.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, 21.9 points per game. He is the only person to do that in the last 5 years.
Right. I understand that. But
one other back's ever done it. So
I know there's a lot of things that
a
Le'Veon
different
Bell.
tier between like Le'Veon Bell and Zeke. I think that Zeke can get there.
Are we gonna do you want to do a bet here? Do we want to do a whisper bet here?
Yeah, I'm down.
All right,
yeah.
we're going
Le'Veon Bell will finish ahead of Zeke this year.
Right.
Easy.
In standard, loser buys the other.
Oh, you're afraid of PPR now because you're afraid of the receiving from Zeke.
No, I'm not afraid of receiving from Zeke. All right, I'll do that. Okay,
across all formats.
Okay, across all. What do you average them out? Like what?
No, I'm just saying, like in all different styles.
Okay,
half point,
okay,
everything.
That's fine. All right, the loser buys the winner a beer,
and has to drink it on the show.
Done.
All right,
deal. I need to come up with a whisper deal or something. I don't know. We'll get it going. Hey, if you're listening right now and you have an idea of what we should make our bets, what the name of our bets will be, we will name it that if you give us a good enough name.
Give us the name and your name is chosen, we'll give you a free t-shirt, Fantasy Whispers t-shirt.
Boom, that just happened. All right. Talking about happening.
Look at Hannon's calling out the beer bet. Yes, but we said you got to chug it on the air. It's like the beer challenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's jump in to the guy, the man, the myth, the legend that I got on the wall right here. Yeah, David Johnson. Travis, I'm going to let you go first because I'm a gentleman. And
Wow.
And David Johnson is my hometown boy. So
I think that we might be in agreement on David Johnson as probably the most exciting back and a huge value here at the top end of this first round. We're talking about a guy that was, a consensus number one last year, turning around and is now, ADP at 4. The guy was a complete beast in 2016 and was 121 receiving yards shy of 1,000 and 1,000, which is a very big deal, especially when you're talking about fantasy purposes. But he's been vocal about reaching that 1,000 and 1,000 goal. So that's interesting to see. There are some stats out there about fullbacks and the use of them. And now for the first time since college, David Johnson will be having a fullback as Arizona is committed to that. He's in a contract year, so you have that narrative working for him. And there is the small concern is as of today, he's holding out. We spoke about that a little bit. But if we're hearing two stories out of Arizona from the coaching staff, there's two. One is that running is the key to success in the NFL. And two is that DJ has looked great and he's flying around the field. So for me, I would love to be in the position at 4 or even 3 or, God forbid at 5 where you could get David Johnson. My two small concerns would be the offensive line issues that they had last year in Arizona. They were Pro Football Focus's number 31 line in their rankings that they do every year. And I think we both believe Sam Bradford may not end up the starting quarterback at the end of the year, and inconsistent quarterback play could hinder him. But I think if they, like I said, if Arizona sticks to this, their vocalness about being committed to the run, David Johnson should have a monster year.
All right. So can you please just answer me this, okay? What's the difference between last year and this year with David Johnson?
Well, I think that Todd Gurley jumped into the conversation as a receiving running, pass catching running back.
Okay, but did Todd Gurley have as good of a season
you're
as
the
David
one
Johnson?
You're the one who's got Zeke ahead of DJ. So
so this is why I'm saying that you had mentioned it. I think that DJ is the best value in the whole draft, and that's because last year he was going at number 1. And then all of a sudden, he didn't injure any of his lower body. It was a wrist, which he took almost a year to recover. So it's definitely ready to go. And then all of a sudden you're telling me that he's going to be the number 4 pick, or possibly, like you alluded to, the number 5 pick. I'm not doubting you, Travis. I'm just saying I think it's kind of crazy that the value that you can get now at that potentially number 4 spot or number 5 spot is David Johnson. To
be fair, Bruce Arians is gone, Carson Palmer's gone, and they've changed coaches. So I'm just saying, you're asking what's different. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll address those in just a second. Okay, he has relatively young legs. We got to remember that in his rookie year, he wasn't used that much. If you watched the show on Amazon Prime, All or Nothing, you saw how much he was like, I got to hold him back because I don't want him to get too egotistical. And therefore, he didn't give him a lot of touches. And then in his second year, he exploded. And then in this past year, he got injured on the first game. So relatively game miles, he doesn't have a lot like you do with with Le'Veon Bell, with Todd Gurley. These guys have a ton of mileage on them, and they have really bad injuries on them. Whereas David Johnson is just a wrist injury. And then you talked about the offensive line. Yes, I understand that they were really bad last year, but you got to remember, we had Chris Humphreys was just getting acclimated to his left tackle position. You had Mike Iupati out, which is one of the best run blockers of 2 years ago. We picked up Puig from the Giants, and we picked up Smith from the Bengals. So that offensive line is going to be a lot better. And then you talked about the new coaching staff, and you brought up Bradford, which I love that you brought up Bradford, because what is Sam Bradford? We joke about it all the time, right? He's injury prone. Well, what better way to protect a running back or a quarterback than to turn around and hand the ball off 30 times a game? So that doesn't discourage me at all. And in fact, it makes me more excited that they have Sam Bradford in there because I think there's going to be even more touches for David Johnson because of it. And then you're talking about inconsistency with Josh, with our number one overall pick with the Cardinals and Josh Rosen. Okay, I live in Arizona. As you can tell, I'm a huge Arizona Cardinals fan, and I will tell you this: that I daily listen to sports talk radio. Shout out to Burns and Gambo. He gives us a lot of insiders. Follow him on Twitter. All the news that is coming out about Josh Rosen is they can't believe their eyes. They're like, this guy, how did other teams pass up on this guy? He is going to be a top quarterback in this league. So I'm not worried about the drop off at all. In fact, I'm actually more intrigued about Josh Rosen being under center than I am about with Mr. Break a Leg over there and Sam Bradford. Excuse me, I couldn't think of his name for a second. But okay, so Hannon is saying stack the box. Well, hi Jeff. He's saying stack the box. I don't think you could do that though, because you have Sam Bradford back there who can actually is very, very accurate with his passes. So I'm not concerned about them stacking the box, because if that's the case, fine, we'll take the dink and dunks because Sam Bradford is extremely accurate. So for me, David Johnson is the top, one of the best bargains in this draft. Also top on there, the fact that his whole goal this year is to get 1,000 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards. That's motivation on top of, like you said, the contract negotiations. He's going to be super motivated. Best bargain in the first round. You heard it here first. Whisper, whisper. Okay, let's move on. I think I had enough of him. I need to catch my breath after Googling Gaga over
Johnny's
my boy,
about to pass out. We talked about the Cardinals for a half hour.
Tell him why people should be so confident in Alvin Kamara in drafting them, and why last year wasn't just a fluke, Travis.
Well, there's some things that catch your eye with Alvin Kamara other than his stats from last year, and that's the way he moves on the field. If you look at Pro Football Focus, who are they provide us with a lot of stats that we love. You guys should check them out as well. They have him graded as their most elusive back, and he's the only one to post a single season above 96.3 in the last 12 years. He is the most elusive back in the last 12 years with a rating of 108.5. So nobody's gotten over the 96 threshold. He's got it by about 12 points. So, I mean, I'm just talking about a guy that is a one-of-a-kind talent. Sean Payton knows it. We all know it. And this guy was elite last year. He was targeted 96 times. He caught 81 of those targets. He racked up 826 receiving yards, and 703 of those yards, Johnny, were after the catch. So he did the work on these things. 5 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 10 yards per reception and 6.1 yards per carry. So he can do both. I just think if Ingram's out, they're going to realize how special, again, Kamara is. They're going to need him to have this kind of production to keep that running game at par with what it was last year. Was New Orleans last year an aberration, or is Sean Payton brilliant at utilizing his weapons? I'm going to go with the latter, and Alvin Kamara will have 4 games without Ingram, which should only mean more usage. He can say all he wants. I think it's just a bunch of hot air that he's blowing when he's got such a talented guy in Alvin Kamara sitting there.
All right, well, an interesting stat to me is that I like to look at the number of carries he had after they released or traded away Adrian Peterson. And it was a little bit shocking to know that I was expecting a lot of carries after that. And he only had 151 after week 5. He never touched the ball more than 20 times in a game. So one has to wonder, why was he so successful? And that he had a whopping 0.56 points per opportunity, Travis. And that's on par with a lot of the quarterbacks per snap, which is insane, given the small amount of carries that he had compared to his fantasy output. Travis, what's my favorite game in Vegas?
Craps?
Hello?
Is it craps?
Yes, it is, sir. It is craps. And I'll tell you what, in craps, when you see snake eyes, I'm not the type of person who doubles down and puts a little bit money on the hard ways, okay? And that's the same goes for Kamara and why I'm nervous to draft him this year. The Ingram suspension does help, but I keep reverting back to why would they not feed Ingram once he comes back? Kamara is the future. Ingram isn't. He's going to be a free agent after this year. It kind of goes back to the Le'Veon Bell thing. Why wouldn't they use him up and save Alvin Kamara for next season when they could just let Ingram go? Plus, Peyton has said, unlike you don't believe it, but I believe some of this with the amount of running backs that they're bringing in and the type of running backs that they're bringing in are a lot like Ingram, which makes me think that what he's saying has some truth to it. Now, am I saying that Alvin Kamara is going to get 5 touches a game? No, I don't. But do I think they're going to keep him under 20 a game? I do. Alvin Kamara is truly one of those guys that I would say if you told me at the end of the season he finished as a top 3 running back, I would not be shocked at all. I would say sounds about right. Now, however, if you said Alvin Kamara was a back of the end RB2, I also wouldn't be shocked. I would say, all right, I could see that. The data was kind of showing that. So, and that was kind of what my hunch was.
I think it depends on what data you're looking at. You're talking about the points per opportunity. I'm talking about the fact the guy averaged 6.1 yards per carry and 10 yards per reception.
And
like he was a stud. That's why. Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think it's probably maybe dip to 5 yards per carry, 8 yards per reception. Those are still monster numbers. We're talking about a one-of-a-kind talent here.
He's not
Pro
Football
Football Focus has him as the best, most elusive back in the last 12 years.
He won't get over 5. He won't get over 5 yards a carry. That's and I know that's astronomical.
I don't know because we've never seen anybody like this in 12 years. So,
all right, you keep betting on these once in a lifetime generational players that doing whatever they do.
Johnny, we have them ranked
over and over again.
Just so everybody's aware, we both have them ranked at the same spot. So it's not like Johnny disagrees with me here.
I want people to be cautious and know what they're drafting into and not just say, oh, last year's pie in the sky is going to happen again. Because when that happens, people are going to get disappointed. They're going to get down. And that's when they make mistakes.
What makes more sense to you? Terrence West acting more like Mark Ingram did last year, or Alvin Kamara being more like Alvin Kamara was last year?
I'm not saying Terrence West doesn't have to be
Tim Hightower. Any of these veterans. I think
he could be Tim Hightower. 100%. Behind that line, yes. He can be Tim Hightower. And we saw Tim Hightower.
Tim Hightower can repeat Mark Ingram's numbers from last year.
You're
that's
insane.
That's all I'm saying.
Another wager with sir. You don't want to bet. I'll bet on this one.
What are we betting?
Another beer chug.
What are we betting?
I will say he will not be above 5 yards per carry. Average.
I will say that Alvin Kamara will finish in the top 10 at the position. We'll split. We'll split the difference. You said he could be. You said he could be an RB1 or top 5 at the position, or he could be a RB2, like 25th at the position.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think that he can do that, but I'm saying that what his project. You're saying, oh, he can repeat 6.1 yards per carry. I'm saying he cannot. I'm saying he can't even come close. I will bet he will not go over 5 yards per carry next season.
Okay.
Is it a bet? We got number 2. All right, we got number 2. Whisper bet. Whisper.
His career yard per carry will be over 5 yards. I didn't say career.
Year. No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because I'm not betting on career average. I'm saying next year, which is what I've been saying all along, he's going to go down in yards per carry. 6.1 is not obtainable. He will go down. So if you want to bet me on the yards per carry going down to 5 for next season, I will gladly take that bet.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
All right. Whisper bet.
All I'm saying is Alvin Kamara is a stud, and Johnny's trying to say he's not, even though he ranked him as a stud. So
no, he's a stud. I'm just letting the people know.
So tell the people how much you hate Kareem Hunt. Then,
well, this isn't gonna sound good. All right. So what we don't know about Kareem Hunt, I'll start there because I think it's very, very important to let the people know what we know so far, and that is. he still has an open investigation going on with he had an incident back in February where it was a domestic violence case where he shoved a girl. Now, there are two sides of the story. He's saying he didn't touch her. She's saying he did. The interesting thing that will develop in this story would be, is there evidence, because it happened in an apartment complex. So if there's video evidence similar that came out that showed Ray Rice a few years ago of Kareem Hunt shoving this girl, then you can see a big 6-game suspension coming. Also, that's not even talking about the most recent one that was in the papers a few weeks ago, and that was he had punched a guy at a bar. So that's 2 violent acts that he's committed within the last few months. So we've seen similar things happen with other athletes, and they got a 4-game suspension. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to project that he's going to get probably a 4-game suspension. Now, I understand that there was no evidence or nothing filed, but generally the NFL does side on the side of caution after the Ray Rice. So I expect them to do the same here. And I think the minimum, it'll be a 2-game suspension. Max, it'll be a 4. Unless that video comes out, like I said, then we could be looking at 6. Okay, but my other question is, how healthy is Spencer Ware? He had a pretty horrific injury last year. PCL and ACL were torn. And there's been no real news come out at how healthy Spencer Ware is, which is a little concerning to me as far as if Kareem Hunt is suspended, who's going to be the backup there. Now, they did take the Cardinals running back Kerwin Williams, which I could tell you.
They also
picked
up Damian Williams too.
Yeah, so both of those guys are definitely guys that can fill in while a suspension is occurring, and it does almost make me think that that Spencer Ware is not going to be healthy enough to start the season. Here's what we do know, Travis. Hunt is very, very good. And we saw that last season in his first 3 games where he had an 89 points combined in those 3 games. Andy Reid isn't known to be an RBBC or running back coach. Andy Reid is always stuck to one kind of guy. When he goes with a guy, he stays with them until that guy is kind of not being effective, and then he'll switch out. But he always stays with kind of one running back. Andy Reid's running backs over the last 19 years have finished as an RB1 10 times out of those 19 years. So right now, based on the news that I read about the domestic violence and the other altercation that happened, I do think that there will be a suspension, although I will even say, with that aside, he's a little bit too concerning just with other things that are moving around there and personal stuff. So I have him as a risky running back at the end of round 1. However, if it does come out where he's not suspended at all, then I would be super confident in drafting him at this spot where you have him, which is 6 overall.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy you're scratching your head on in that first round, especially with the looming suspension. We've seen before, as in Ezekiel Elliott's case, the NFL doesn't care what the law says. So you mentioned the February incident, the incident in June. Acting as if there is no suspension, Kareem Hunt is a no doubt first rounder in my and he has potential to be in the top 5. He has come into training camp talking about his receiving prowess and how he is going to work on this. And, with those guys behind him, he's going to have the competition to do so. So I think that would light a fire under him. It is a bit of a tale of 2 halves with Kareem Hunt. You look at how his play dipped in a 7-game stretch that saw the offensive line suffer some injuries, and he failed to gain 100 yards in any of those games. But when the line was healthy, and they were playing well, he had 5 straight games of 100 or more yards. So like we said, the talk from OTAs is that he's working on his receiving. We talked about Andy Reid. I think that barring the suspension, he's a guy you're confident in. And, I just want to make a note here. Chris Hannon had a comment here. These guys need to stop talking about this domestic violence. I find it really upsetting. We got to continue to talk about guys that are doing this. I really
Absolutely.
hope that this is a trend that goes the other way. We're trying to talk about fantasy football, and we got to keep talking about guys and what they're doing off the field. I'm hoping that the league will do something to educate and help these guys get the help that they need to get away from doing things like this. So
Very
with that
well
being
said.
said, let's go talk about the guy you're probably most excited about in the first round, Saquon Barkley, coming in at a unanimous 7 spot.
Oh man, I think I'm the most hyped about Saquon Barkley heading into this year's draft, and I can only sum it up by saying this part for Saquon Barkley is just pure love. Okay, I think he's going to get so many touches that he's just a surefire RB1. Even though they play the 4th hardest schedule for running backs, let's just give him a 3.3 yards per carry. I think with the volume, the ability to catch out of the backfield, and the lack of depth behind him, you can slot him as an RB1. We need to remember a few years ago, a guy named Trent Richardson, he averaged 3.6 yards per carry, and yet he was still able to get an RB1 return. I see that as the floor, and that makes me excited. I know that I'm going to get good value when I'm drafting Saquon Barkley. Travis?
Yeah, I don't have much. I don't think we differ very much on this. In fact, Saquon's going to jump a bit with the Kareem Hunt news if that comes out. And if Alvin Kamara, he could easily be right in the mix above Alvin Kamara. Plenty of running back receiving work to be had with the Giants. They had the 6th most targets to and receptions by running backs last year. So you're like, oh, wait, there's a regime change. Well, under Pat Shurmur last year, the Vikings had the 2nd most carries by running backs. So there is going to be usage there. And last year at Penn State, he excelled in receiving with 1.9 yards per route run. Saquon Barkley was also a very physical runner, and he averaged 3.4 yards per carry after contact, as well as 35 broken tackles on 200 carries. Johnny, you're familiar with Todd McShay over at ESPN?
I am, in fact.
He does
he's
the draft.
He's one of my best friends. He follows me on Twitter.
I don't know about all that. I thought you only had one follower, and that was Carson Wentz, but what do I know?
Oh, man, I would like that.
So Todd McShay has compared Saquon against all other backs that he's profiled in his career at ESPN, and he has Barkley at number 2, only behind Adrian Peterson in all of his time with ESPN. So we're talking about Marshawn Lynch, Ezekiel Elliott, some of these other guys that have come through that have been great draft prospects and become great runners. Only AP has come in. The only minor concern I have would be pass blocking, but once again, with his elite receiving skills, he is likely to remain a high-volume playmaker for the Giants going forward. Another guy that's a high-volume playmaker is Melvin Gordon. He comes in at our number 8 with the Los Angeles Chargers. Tell me a little bit about him, Johnny.
All right, so I know that everyone wants to talk about his underwhelming yards per carry, and yes, I'll agree that it's when you first look at it, it's pretty abysmal. It's 3.8. And I'm here to tell all of you guys, all of our listeners, don't worry about that, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of the reason why his yards per carry is so low is because they give him the ball. He's so good at short yardage situations that they give him the ball all the time when it's, 1st and goal from the 1 or 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. And teams load the box, and he doesn't get a lot of yards on those carries. So that will definitely bring down the yards per carry. Only 4 times in the last 2 years, he didn't finish the week as an RB1 or an RB2. Looking to get that money, just like David Johnson, he is motivated as anyone to really succeed this year. The Chargers face the 7th easiest running back schedule, according to Pro Football Focus, and underrated defense in LA. I would say both of the LA defenses are underrated this year. But I'm talking about the Chargers here. I think they're underrated, and they're going to dominate teams. They're going to the offense for LA Chargers is very potent. And so, therefore, I see a lot of points being scored, and then I see a lot of being up by a lot. So I'm just going to turn around and hand it off to Melvin Gordon and get him even more touches. Tell me what you're thinking. If you agree, disagree.
You talked about Le'Veon Bell being the usage back there. Yeah. Melvin Gordon is making a case himself. He averages 22 touches over the last 2 years, and that's only 2 less than Le'Veon Bell's 5-year mark at 24. So he was in on 75% of his team's snaps, and he accounted for 76% of the total running back touches over the last 2 years. He also averaged 3.4 receptions and 30 yards over that span. So the receiving that he's getting, which is just a little bonus, creates a nice floor for Melvin Gordon. And over his last 30 games, he's rushed for 18 touchdowns. So he's not just doing it with the yardage with his usage, he's scoring. He has effectiveness at the goal line. If we're looking at him talking about those targets in the receiving game, he finished as 7th at the end of last year in running back targets with 73. So he's within the top 10 of targets, and he's also watched his carries increase every year. 184 carries as a rookie, 254 in 2016, and last year he had 284. I wouldn't be surprised if he dips into the 290 and 300 carry mark this year. The concern has been the yards per carry and a little bit of an injury concern. But I think if you're talking about a surefire bell cow, which there aren't many left in the league, he is one of them.
Hannon has a question here. What about Austin Eckler?
Once again, I'm not concerned. There was usage last year with Eckler, but once again, you had Melvin Gordon finish, even with Eckler's use and Melvin Gordon's injuries, you had Melvin Gordon finishing at 7th in RB targets. So he's still a guy they love to use in the passing game, no matter who they can bring in as a change of pace.
Yep. All right, so let's jump into our number 9 running back, and that's Leonard Fournette. Travis, are you concerned with the random sitting and the amount of missed games that Leonard Fournette had last year? Are you cleaning the slate with that and saying this year is a new year? I think he learned his lesson.
Well, I was kind of concerned, but actually another nice news note today was he wants to get back to his college weight of 240. He came in at 228 last year, and his concern, they have all of the guys over there in the media at Jacksonville are saying that he's coming in leaner this year. So if he gets to that 240 mark and it's more muscle, I like him to be a guy. I think that last year, a lot of the sitting and some of the things that happened were due to his conditioning, and I feel like if he comes in a little bit leaner, he'll be better conditioned. But if you're talking about a guy at 228 that was doing things like going against a stacked box at 49% of his carries and still had 1,040 yards and 9 touchdowns, I mean, imagine what he's going to do at 240. He averaged 23 touches per game and finished as the 8th best running back in all of last year. The Jaguars led the league in running back carries last year and finished 5th in fantasy points per rush. So, like, the usage is there. They're going to continue to pound the rock, especially with their defense and especially with Blake Bortles' inconsistencies. My concern is more the ankle issues, but I think if you're going to get Leonard Fournette, it's in these first few years before those ankle issues really catch up to him. And so I think this is the time to cash in on a guy like Leonard Fournette.
All right. I think that Chris Hannon, I'm putting this up again because prime candidate for a sophomore slump. I agree, and I will tell you why, okay? He had one of the best 4-game stretches last year in scoring 85 fantasy points from week 3 to week 6. 10 out of the 16 weeks he finished as an RB2 or better, which you really, really like, and only completely busted. So that's an RB4 or worse 2 times last season. So you're asking me, how does this equate to him having a regression? I know that's what you're thinking right now, aren't you, Travis? Well, I'm going to tell you, okay? I'm going to tell you. The downside is that he gets injured often. We've seen this in college. We saw it again last year. He didn't play in 3 games, like I had said before. And then there was like a random healthy scratch on a Sunday morning when we woke up.
It wasn't random. He missed a team picture.
Well,
so we know exactly why we know exactly why he missed that game.
All right, so let's say he does it again. I mean, who's to say? I don't know if he's going to or not. Okay, but that's a concern that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, and then he only finished as an RB1 5 times last season. ultimately, I think he's an RB2 with upside that is currently going in the late first round. And I think that's just too risky for me. I would, at that tail end, you're looking at elite wide receivers in most cases, because those fall. You're looking at an Odell Beckham, or you're looking at a Julio Jones. Maybe at the Julio Jones is where you start to ponder which one you're going to take. But ultimately, I think the price is just too expensive for Leonard Fournette. All right.
Yeah, you have a point about ADP being where he would have to finish kind of to retain that value. I think for me, Jacksonville's line, it was good last year, and it only improved over the offseason. And the 23 touches per game, and the fact that Jacksonville was among the league leaders in running back carries and points per. I just feel like with a league, once again, the Melvin Gordon point, in a league with not very many bell cows, he is a bell cow.
All right. And last but not least, Dalvin Cook. Travis, explain to the people why they should be infatuated with Dalvin Cook as much as you and I.
Well, before the ACL injury last year, he was on pace for 340 touches, which would have put him around the same usage as Melvin Gordon, LaShawn McCoy, and other bell cows. I see no reason the Vikings wouldn't continue this kind of usage, especially after Jerick McKinnon has exited. In the 4 games he played, he rushed for 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 11 receptions for 90 yards receiving. He had a yard per carry average of 4.78. The sample size is small, but you think about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Vikings and these teams with awesome defenses. They love to play to the defense and play time clock management. I imagine they're going to continue to do that even with Kirk Cousins. And in fact, Cousins should increase Cook's outlook based on the fact that they will keep drives alive and he will be able to convert in the getting into the red zone. So I like Dalvin Cook. I think he's ahead of schedule based on all the reports. And I think that he's a nice guy to get at the end of that round, or as a guy you could double up with maybe a riskier play like you were saying in Leonard Fournette.
Right. And I like that pairing. So he's got the third easiest strength of schedule for a running back, which you've got to really like. I do expect him to get a lot of checkdowns out of the backfield. We've seen it before with Kirk Cousins, and I think it'll happen again. He has to focus, though, on hauling in those passes. He had a ton of drop balls last season coming out of the backfield where he was just kind of worried about what the cornerback was doing or what the linebacker was doing instead of really watching the ball into his basket and his bread basket and scoring us those lovely, lovely fantasy points. So if he works on that, which I think he will, he truly has the home run ability that we love in fantasy running backs, right? Like he can give you that 50-yard burst for a touchdown. He can get you that swing pass out of the backfield for 30 yards and a touchdown. Some might be worried about Latavius Murray back there, but I'm not. Don't read into that. This guy is not someone that is going to affect Dalvin Cook. We saw it last season in the first few games. It was an afterthought, Latavius Murray, until Dalvin Cook got injured. So don't worry about him. You're talking about another guy that I love where his draft position is. Like you said, it's at the back end of the first round. I think he's an absolute steal there because you're looking at a really high-end potential running back, as well as being able to flip around and possibly getting either pairing it with another potentially high running back if Melvin Gordon falls, or like we said, Leonard Fournette, or pairing him with an elite wide receiver that are usually falling right around there. So definitely love Dalvin Cook this year. Definitely hope he's on a lot of my teams. All right, Travis, we have come to the end of. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Again, if you didn't catch this live, go ahead and check us out on YouTube or on Facebook Live again. You can replay this, as well as catch us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. The show will be up shortly. Travis, you have any last words for the people?
I just want to say thank everybody. Thank you to everybody who stuck with us even with the technical difficulties tonight. And I want to encourage you guys all to check out the website. We have face-off articles coming, and also YouTube. Please subscribe and get on YouTube. We have the Mock Draft Mondays coming out every Monday. And my mom just said a big hello. Tara Short, love you, Mama. And
hey, Travis, Ma.
And so thanks to everybody for sharing the podcast with everyone. And we love you guys. We couldn't have got to 500 downloads without you. We can't wait for 500 more.
Thank you guys so much. And like we said, if you want to earn a shout out on next week's show, go ahead and hit that share button. Peace. I'm Giant Game Time Hicks. That's Big Travie. And we're out.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.